Welcome to the Hindu Daily. We're immediately diving into our first source today, found in the South section. It's an article titled Indian Federalism, A Call for State Autonomy, and it's written by M.K. Stalin, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. He really sets the stage right away, asserting that federal balance is a key democracy indicator. So let's try and unpack this. The Chief Minister's core argument, it seems, is that in a truly federal system, states shouldn't be put in a position where they have to, quote, protest, litigate, or plead for their rightful share of revenues.
Right.
He argues this constant struggle, well, it affects not just the state's own development, but also the wider national unity. The article ties India's independence back to that whole nationwide movement built on unity and diversity. This principle, he says, led directly to the linguistic reorganization of states and the Constitution itself, defining India as a union of states.
And that union of states phrasing is critical to his argument, isn't it? It emphasizes that it's not just one monolithic entity.
Exactly. It's foundational to his perspective.
And what I found particularly interesting is the historical context he brings in. He reminds us about Jawaharlal Nehru's assurance concerning Hindi imposition.
Ah, yes.
And also Tamil Nadu's own resolution about using Tamil and English for official purposes. This history, you see, helps explain why state autonomy feels so deeply ingrained, so fundamental to their idea of collective freedom.
It frames these current debates against sort of long-standing historical commitments or understandings.
Precisely.
Yeah.
These weren't just minor points. They were seen as foundational agreements shaping the Indian Union.
Okay, but the chief minister then contends that despite these foundational ideals, there's a section of thought that fails to understand the full import of ideas like cooperative federalism and state autonomy. The article talks about what it describes as a gradual erosion of that carefully structured division of powers.
Erosion. How so?
Well, it mentions concurrent list matters being increasingly subsumed, and the union encroaching on subjects that should belong to the state list. It even goes so far as to say that union obligations to states haven't been met since 2014, suggests a growing imbalance.
And this raises a really important point about the practical consequences, right? What does this erosion actually mean for the states on the ground?
Good question. The article gives some specific examples.
Like?
It states Tamil Nadu was denied nearly 2,200 crore under the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. That's a major national education program.
Why?
Apparently for not signing an OU for a completely unrelated scheme, the PM SHRI scheme, which is about upgrading schools.
That seems disconnected.
That's the implication. And it also mentions the union government failing to allocate its share in some centrally sponsored schemes, forcing the state to pick up the slack financially.
So these aren't just abstract arguments about federalism. The author is highlighting real impacts on state budgets and their ability to deliver services.
Exactly. And interestingly, the CM also points to Tamil Nadu's economic performance, an 11.19% growth rate projected for 2024-25, fastest among large economies, he says. He calls it a critical pillar for India's big goal of a $30 trillion economy by 2047.
A pillar,
But the article claims the union is effectively penalizing the state for this very performance.
penalizing success. How?
The article doesn't detail the exact mechanism of penalization in this specific quote, but it sets up a question. The CM asks why the current prime minister, who, as Gujarat CM, was apparently quite vocal about state rights, seems to have changed his stance now. It presents this as a kind of inconsistency.
It's definitely presented as a pointed observation. And the article stresses this isn't a brand new fight, is it?
No, not at all. It mentions the Rajamanar Committee's recommendations way back in 1974 on union-state relations.
The landmark report, yeah.
And the current high-level committee under Justice Kurian Joseph, whose work is ongoing. Both underscore how long this debate about federal balance has been going on.
So the consistent theme, according to the article, is this feeling of a lopsided distribution of power.
That's the phrase used, yes. And a demand for a fairer slice of the tax pie, suggesting a jump from the current 33.16% share states get from the divisible pool, which itself is from the 15th Finance Commission's recommended 41% baseline, up to 50%.
A significant increase.
A very significant one. And the article also brings up that recurring issue of governors acting as, quote, roadblocks to bills passed by state legislatures.
Forcing states to go to the Supreme Court.
Right. It paints this picture of ongoing constitutional tension. Okay, let's shift now to another perspective, but on similar themes. This one's from the editorial section by Pinarayi Vijayan, the Chief Minister of Kerala. It's titled Defending India's Democratic and Federal Principles.
Right, and this article takes a broader approach, doesn't it?
It does. It starts by framing Independence Day as this potent reminder of the heroic struggle that united millions behind values like democracy, secularism, harmony, social progress, the big ideals.
And significantly, it expands the discussion from just federal mechanics to the very essence of nationalism and what the author calls its manipulations.
How so?
Well, the chief minister offers a critique of the current socioeconomic situation. He describes wealth accumulating with a super minority, while a larger minority struggles with skyrocketing inflation, unemployment, deprivation, and malnourishment.
And he links this to specific policies.
Yes, directly to neoliberal policies.
Oh.
He also specifically mentions the ongoing struggles faced by farmers. It's presented as a fundamental shift in the country's direction and who benefits from it.
Then the article moves into this idea of manipulating nationalism. It argues that dissent is often framed as anti-national.
That's a serious charge.
It is. The article states that regressive forces twist the notions of nationalism and try to concoct a majoritarian communal identity.
Leading to
Polarization and even, quote, brutalities for their lifestyles, eating habits, and identity. The argument is that this directly contradicts the inclusive republic envisioned by India's founders. It's a strong critique of how national identity is allegedly being used.
So, if we connect the dots between the two articles, both chief ministers are raising concerns about federalism. But this second piece places those concerns within a much wider context, perceived threats to core constitutional ideals.
Right. It talks about a systematic and unprecedented shift away from that constitutional equilibrium.
And it gives examples of this shift.
Yes, it mentions measures like the push for a one nation, one election system. Critics, as cited in the article, see this as curtailing the right of state electorates, basically, potentially undermining the power of voters at the state level. Reducing states to administrative units is the fear expressed.
And it goes further, doesn't it? Talking about central agencies.
It does. A really significant point raised is the alleged weaponization of investigative bodies and central administrative mechanisms.
Including specific institutions.
Yes, it names the Election Commission and the Directorate of Enforcement, among others. This connects directly back to the criticism we heard about the governor's role.
The idea being that governors act as political agents of the union.
Exactly. To deliberately block or delay governance, especially in states ruled by opposition parties, the article presents this as a calculated strategy to undermine state autonomy.
And does it offer specific examples from Kerala itself?
Yes, very concrete ones. It mentions instances where the governor has allegedly withheld assent to bills for extended periods, months even. And it claims the governor has paralyzed key academic institutions by delaying university appointments, acting in his capacity as chancellor.
So the argument is that this role, meant to be a bridge between union and state, has become a roadblock instead.
Precisely. Undermining not just the state government, but also the education system. The article ends with a strong call to action to resist trends that undermine state autonomy, misuse constitutional offices, and weaken the secular psyche of the polity. It's framed as a defense of the constitutional structure itself.
A very direct appeal.
Okay, changing gears completely now. We move to another piece in the editorial section, this one titled Halting the Hyacinth's Invasion, a Call for Unity by Vinyu Rajamoni.
Ah, yes, the water hyacinth problem.
Exactly. The article describes it as a quiet menace that surges across India's waterways, especially during the monsoon. It paints this picture of an aquatic plant, looks quite pretty with its lilac flowers.
Deceptively pretty.
Yes, the article says its appearance belies its destructive power. It's setting up this image of something seemingly harmless that's actually a huge problem.
And what's striking is how this plant, originally brought in as an ornamental during colonial times, has just exploded into this massive ecological and economic nightmare.
Yeah, the scale is staggering. The article says it smothers over 200,000 hectares of inland waters across the country.
200,000 hectares.
And it really drills down into the impact in Kerala, particularly on Vembanad Lake, a Ramsar wetland, mind you. It apparently disrupts everything from tourism to local transport, hitting millions of livelihoods.
So let's talk about that destructive power. How exactly does it cause harm?
Well, for farmers, especially paddy cultivators in Kutana, the rice bowl of Kerala,
Right.
it blocks crucial irrigation channels, slows water flow, basically chokes the fields. Drives up farming costs significantly, according to the article.
And for fishermen.
Big problems there, too. It strangles fish nurseries, physically blocks access to fishing areas, and damages their nets and boats.
This hits multiple livelihoods directly.
Directly. And beyond the economic impact, there's the ecological devastation. The article stresses how it blocks sunlight and oxygen from getting into the water.
Effectively suffocating everything underneath.
Exactly. It says it suffocates everything below, unraveling entire aquatic food webs. This is far more than just an aesthetic issue.
And there's a climate change angle, too, isn't there? A hidden danger.
Yes, the article points this out. As these massive mats of hyacinth decay, they release methane.
Which is a potent greenhouse gas.
Very potent. About 25 times more powerful than carbon dioxide, the article states. So this connects a local invasive species problem directly to global climate concerns. It has far-reaching implications.
It's a complex issue. Does the article offer any solutions or hopeful signs?
It does mention some promising grassroots efforts, like women's self-help groups in Odisha weaving the hyacinth into handicrafts.
Turning a problem into a product.
Kind of. And in Assam and West Bengal, there are initiatives converting it into paper and even biogas.
Interesting uses.
But the author is quick to point out that these remain isolated in scope and scale. They're innovative, but not nearly enough to tackle the sheer size of the problem. A broader, coordinated strategy seems to be missing.
Which leads to the question of systemic solutions, right?
Okay.
What does the article propose?
It argues that the current setup, where responsibility is spread thinly across multiple government departments, agriculture, fisheries, environment, irrigation,
leads to fragmented efforts.
Exactly. Piecemeal and short-term efforts is the phrase used. They just don't address the problem comprehensively.
So what's needed instead?
The article calls for a single-point accountability mechanism and a national policy, but with region-specific ways to implement it.
Makes sense. The problem might look different in different places.
Right. It suggests coordinated removal drives, giving incentives to innovators working on uses for the plan, and really encouraging private sector partnerships for value addition.
Trying to create a market for it, perhaps?
Essentially, yes. The article mentions a recent workshop by Jain University in Kochi that brought together various stakeholders, government, researchers, NGOs. It presents this as a positive step towards that kind of united action. The goal, it seems, is to reimagine the hyacinth, not just as a pest, but maybe, just maybe, as a resource for sustainable livelihoods.
A challenging but necessary shift in perspective.
Definitely. Okay, let's move from environmental challenges now to a very different kind of debate, public health and human rights. This is from the opinion section. Should HIV/AIDS testing be made mandatory before marriage?
This is a tricky one, especially with the news about Meghalaya considering following Goa's lead.
Exactly. The article sets this up as a parlay, a discussion between two experts with opposing views. Dr. N. Kumarasamy and Janabi Goswami.
Okay.
Dr. Kumarasamy comes out strongly against mandatory testing. He points directly to the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 2017.
What does the act say?
It explicitly mandates counseling and informed consent before any HIV test and confidentiality afterwards.
Consent and confidentiality, key principles.
Absolutely. And he emphasizes a major scientific point. An HIV-positive person who is consistently on antiretroviral treatment can achieve an undetectable viral load.
The UU principle.
Right. Undetectable equals untransmittable. He states clearly they will not transmit infections sexually to their partners, plus they won't develop HIV complications and can live a normal life with normal immunity.
So, from his perspective, forcing testing is
a human rights violation, plain and simple,
Yeah.
and counterproductive because it actually increases stigma.
Yeah.
His position is offer testing widely, yes, but always with consent and confidentiality. That's the scientifically sound and ethical path, he argues.
Okay, so that's one side. What about Janabi Goswami's argument for mandatory testing?
Well, she acknowledges the UGU concept, she's aware of the science, but she points to the reality on the ground, Cases where individuals know they're infected but aren't taking their medication regularly.
And the consequences.
Spouses and even children get infected. Often, she says, due to family pressure or societal factors preventing consistent treatment adherence.
Mm-hmm.
And then she makes this culturally resonant point. And in India, we believe in matching horoscopes before the wedding. Why not a HIV test? It brings the debate right into everyday practices.
That's a powerful framing. And she highlights specific regional issues, too.
Yes, particularly in the Northeast, where injecting drug use is a major driver of HIV infections, nearly 64%, the article notes.
Is that I?
Yes. Goswami talks about instances where men might conceal their status, maybe clean up their act temporarily just to get married, and then end up infecting their wives.
A tragic situation.
And she also mentions a practical concern that sometimes doctors do conduct HIV tests forcefully without proper counseling, suggesting a gap between policy and practice.
Okay, how does Dr. Kumarasamy respond to these points, especially the risk of transmission from non-adherent individuals?
He counters that forced testing isn't foolproof either. It can lead to false negatives, especially if done incorrectly during the window period right after infection.
The timing issue.
Right. He insists that proper counseling is absolutely key for people to understand that window period. And he points to successful models elsewhere in India, southern states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and also Maharashtra.
What makes them successful, in his view?
Widespread testing, yes, but crucially, with consent and strong systems to link people who test positive to immediate treatment and care. He argues this approach has demonstrably reduced infections, proving that non-mandatory consent-based strategies work effectively.
But Goswami maintains that Meghalaya has unique challenges.
She does. She cites cultural factors like taboos around discussing sex or using condoms, the prevalence of extramarital affairs in some contexts, and importantly, very significant discrimination against people living with HIV.
And the stigma is linked to how people think the infection was acquired.
That's a key point she makes. The stigma isn't just about the disease itself, but often tied to judgments about the perceived origin of the infection. This makes open disclosure incredibly difficult. The article really emphasizes understanding these local nuances.
So, despite the disagreement on mandatory testing, is there any common ground on tackling stigma?
Yes, definitely. Both experts agreed that awareness is critical. Getting the message out about effective treatments and the UU concept is vital.
Making it less scary, more manageable?
Exactly. The goal, as presented in the article, is to normalize the conversation. Make it so that people living with HIV feel comfortable talking about their status, like they might discuss managing diabetes or cancer.
And using positive role models.
Yes, involving infected individuals as role models and significantly improving counseling services are seen as key steps. The ultimate aim is shifting the societal view away from fear and judgment towards understanding treatability and focusing on prevention.
A complex but crucial shift.
Indeed. Okay, let's move now to the IT sector. This is a cornerstone of India's growth story, of course. The article is from the science section titled Turbulence in India's IT Workforce, Layoffs, AI, and the Future.
Turbulence is right. It kicks off with some stark news about TCS.
Yeah, jarring news. TCS releasing 2% of its global workforce, that's about 12,000 employees, mainly mid to senior level. And the article mentions alleged instances of forced resignation.
Forced resignation.
The article includes stories like a pregnant woman, a newly married man being given a stark choice, resign or be terminated. It paints a pretty grim picture. And the feeling among many, according to the piece, is that this isn't just a temporary blip. It feels like a deeper structural shift in the industry.
And the experts quoted offer explanations for this shift.
Yes. Biswajit Mahapatra from Forrester talks about a paradigm shift. Layoffs aren't just about economic cycles anymore, he suggests, but about these profound industry changes.
Driven by AI and automation.
That's part of the narrative. NASSCOM's statement, referenced in the article, points to AI and automation leading to a reevaluation of traditional skill sets. The implication is that the skills needed are changing rapidly.
But it's not just AI, is it?
No, the article is clear on that. Kamal Karanth from Exfino broadens the picture. He points to macro headwinds, global conflicts, tariffs, companies cutting back on discretionary spending.
Big global factors.
Right. And he notes that tech giants like Google and Microsoft have also had significant layoffs, about 1.2 lakh jobs shed over the past couple of years. Plus, there's the rise of freelancers and global capability centers, or GCCs.
Those in-house tech hubs set up by multinationals in India.
Exactly, and they're now competing directly with the traditional Indian IT services firms, taking a slice of their business.
So this challenges the old model of Indian IT growth, where more headcount equaled more revenue.
Precisely. There seems to be a growing consensus, as the article puts it, that growth would be decoupled from headcount thanks to AI and automation.
Interesting. And TCS's new bench policy fits into this.
It seems to. Restricting time on the bench between projects to just 35 days a year. The article suggests that the forced resignations are allegedly targeting these benched employees who are maybe seen less as a resource pool and more as a cost.
But there's pushback against the idea that AI is the main culprit.
Yes, definitely. Suhas Adiga from the Karnataka State ITITES Employees Union, Kai2U, is quite skeptical. He argues AI just isn't advanced enough yet to eliminate jobs on this scale in India.
So what's his explanation?
Profit maximization. He suggests companies are laying off higher-paid mid to senior managers to boost their bottom line. He asks, quite pointedly, if AI is coming for multiple job roles, why are the layoffs targeting only mid-management roles?
A fair question. Challenging the dominant narrative.
It implies a different motivation, and the data mentioned in the article seems to offer some support for his view. TCS's own attrition numbers apparently show they are replacing people, not just shrinking the workforce overall due to AI.
So positions are being refilled, maybe with cheaper labor?
That's one possible interpretation. The article identifies this critical mid-layer problem. People with 15-plus years of experience, often in management, seem to be the hardest hit.
And the immediate future looks
More turbulence. Continued layoffs, a hiring slowdown. The article suggests the net count of jobs is likely to be negative for a while, meaning more jobs lost than gained. A contraction.
So what does this mean for the average Indian IT worker?
A lot of uncertainty and stress, clearly, and a huge pressure to constantly reskill.
But there's a paradox mentioned too, a skills shortage.
Yeah, it's strange. The industry apparently still faces a shortage of about 6 lakh employees in certain areas, yet existing workers are reportedly facing pressure, like unpaid overtime. Kai2 actually filed a case against TCS over some of these issues. The article concludes by reflecting on the fading allure of IT as a guaranteed path, and it stresses the need for stricter labor law enforcement, especially given India's wider unemployment situation and how vital IT has been for social mobility for so many.
A complex and worrying picture for a major sector.
Very much so. Okay, let's transition now from tech employment to a really fascinating, maybe slightly unsettling piece from the Spotlight section. COVID-19's hidden toll, how the pandemic has aged our brains.
Ah, this one caught my eye too. Beyond the coughs and fevers,
Yeah.
a deeper impact.
Apparently so. Scientists are finding evidence that the virus itself and also just the immense stress of the pandemic environment might be literally aging our brains faster than normal.
Aging our brains, how do they measure that?
The article explains this concept of brain age. It's basically how old your brain appears biologically based on scans and tests compared to your actual chronological age.
Okay.
And a major study, it cites over 15,000 healthy adults, found that people simply exposed to the environment of the pandemic showed an average brain age increase of about 5.5 months.
Just from the environment, not necessarily infection.
That seems to be the implication for that specific finding, yes. And this accelerated aging was apparently more pronounced in men and people from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Wow. And the article talks about a double whammy effect.
It does. First, there's the virus itself. SARS-CoV-2 is described as neurotropic.
Meaning it can directly affect the brain.
Yes, it can invade and potentially damage brain tissue. The article mentions the virus being found in neural tissues up to 230 days after infection, and signs of immune activation in the brain persisting for maybe 2.5 years.
That's a long time.
It is. And the second part of the whammy is the psychological stress and social isolation. All that fear, anxiety, lockdown. It created a perfect storm for brain health, as the article puts it.
Even the fear alone could have an impact.
The article suggests so, showing elevated activity in brain regions linked to fear and stress. And then there's long COVID.
Right. That affects a significant number of people.
At least 10% of those infected, maybe up to 70% of those who are hospitalized, the article estimates. And for them, symptoms like brain fog, memory issues, concentration problems, fatigue, these can persist for years.
And brain scans show actual changes.
Yes. Scans of COVID survivors cited in the piece have shown measurable drops in cognitive abilities, suggesting real, tangible changes in brain structure or function. The sheer number of people potentially affected globally is quite staggering.
What about the impact on younger people, on adolescents?
That's another concerning area the article touches on. Studies looking at teens before and after pandemic shutdowns found higher anxiety and depression naturally,
Expected, perhaps.
but also accelerated brain maturation equivalent to about 5 or 6 months beyond their actual age.
Wow.
And specifically in teenage girls, they found widespread brain changes across 30 different regions, areas important for social and emotional processing. This corresponded to about 4.2 years of accelerated aging, neurologically speaking.
4 years, that's huge. It suggests the disruption had profound neurological effects on developing brains.
It really does. The article explains some of the potential science behind this damage. It's complex.
Like what?
It involves inflammation throughout the body and brain. Also, a breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, which normally protects the brain.
Letting harmful things in.
Potentially, yes. Also, oxygen deprivation and even the possibility of the immune system mistakenly attacking healthy brain tissue, kind of like an autoimmune reaction. It's a multi-pronged assault on brain health.
So, is there any good news? Does the brain recover?
The latest studies, looking out 3 years, suggest that for mild COVID cases, most brain-related symptoms did improve over time.
That's somewhat reassuring.
But for those who are hospitalized, they continue to show higher death rates and persistent brain problems even 3 years later. Significant ongoing health issues there.
Still, it's not all gloom.
No. The article does highlight some innovative treatment approaches, things like integrative neurorehabilitation combining advanced neurotechnology with holistic therapies. These are apparently showing promise in reversing some effects.
That's positive.
It is. But with an estimated 65 million people worldwide living with long COVID, the article concludes that prioritizing brain health in recovery efforts is a massive ongoing global challenge.
Absolutely critical.
Okay, for our final deep dive today, we're going to the global stage. An article from the text section titled, simply, "Why is there no Palestine state?"
A huge and deeply complex question.
Immense. The article aims to trace the history, briefly, from post-World War II up to the current war in Gaza. It starts with a symbolic event, the bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem in 1946 by the Irgun militia, frames it as a sign of the region's bloody history.
Setting the stage for conflict.
Right. Then it moves to the end of the British Mandate, the UN's 1947 partition plan,
which proposed dividing the land into Arab and Jewish states.
Yes, accepted by the Jewish Agency, but opposed by Arab nations. This leads directly to David Ben-Gurion declaring the establishment of Israel in 1948.
And that year, 1948, holds completely different meanings for each side, doesn't it?
Critically different. The article highlights this dual narrative. For Israel, it's the War of Independence, the birth of their state. For Palestinians, it's the Nakba, the catastrophe.
Resulting in mass displacement.
Violent displacement, the article specifies, of around 750,000 Palestinians. Then it jumps to the 1967 Six-Day War, where Israel captured more territory, the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, bringing, as the article puts it, the whole of Palestine under its control, significantly expanding beyond the UN plan.
And this forms the basis of the Palestinian demand today.
Exactly. The article clarifies that Palestinians generally seek an independent state based on those 1967 borders, the Green Line. That means the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem as its capital.
Has this position been accepted by Palestinian factions?
The article notes that various factions, including both Fatah and Hamas at different points, have accepted this two-state framework based on 1967 borders. However, it contrasts this with Israel's political position, which it says has further shifted to the right.
With leaders disowning the two-state plan.
Yes, mentioning Benjamin Netanyahu specifically as having publicly done so. This highlights a fundamental and apparently growing gap between the two sides' visions.
The article also touches on past peace efforts.
Right.
The cyclical nature of it all.
It does. It details attempts like the 1978 Camp David Agreement, which first outlined a Palestinian self-governing authority, and then the Oslo Accords in the 1990s.
Which divided the West Bank into areas A, B, and C.
Right. But the article characterizes these as initial agreements aimed at taking some preliminary steps. A comprehensive final resolution never came.
Why not? What went wrong?
The core issues remain unresolved, it suggests. Things like the final status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, these were sticking points that couldn't be overcome. And the article talks about the permanence of conflict, what contributes to that.
Several factors are highlighted. The assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in 1995, a huge blow to the peace process. The rise of Hamas. The failure of later summits like Camp David in 2000 over those same core issues. And the articles suggest that for many years, Israel perhaps felt the status quo was manageable, with a divided Palestinian leadership and not enough international pressure to force concessions.
A kind of conflict management rather than resolution.
Perhaps. But then came October 7th, 2023.
The attack by Hamas and Israel's subsequent war on Gaza, how does the article see the impact of this?
It argues these events have further set back the push for a two-state solution, made it even harder. But paradoxically,
yes,
they've also brought the Palestine question back to the center of West Asia's geopolitics. It's impossible to ignore now.
And the outcomes of the war so far.
Well, Israel's stated goal was to destroy Hamas. The article notes that 22 months on, Hamas is far from destroyed. Meanwhile, Israel faces serious allegations of genocide and mass starvation, leading to shifts in international opinion.
That's what the article suggests. More Western countries, even some traditional allies of Israel, are now recognizing Palestinian sovereignty. It signals a potential diplomatic shift.
So what's the final takeaway from the article? What does it mean for the future?
The conclusion is pretty stark. Occupation is not a solution, it states flatly.
Right.
Meaning that unless the fundamental question of Palestine is addressed properly, neither Israel nor West Asia is going to enjoy durable peace and stability.
And what does addressing it properly entail, according to the piece?
Two potential paths to a lasting solution are mentioned. Either the creation of a state of Palestine, with all the rights other nation-states enjoy, so the two-state solution, or the acceptance of the Palestinian people as equal citizens in a single state.
One state with equal rights for all.
Yes. But the immediate outlook presented is bleak. The article describes the current trajectory as an unsustainable and untenable path of violence. It's a sobering assessment of a conflict with no easy answers in sight.
A deeply entrenched problem demanding a fundamental resolution.
Indeed. Thank you for listening. If today's deep dive gave you something useful, consider following us on Spotify so you're the first to hear the next one. You can give suggestions by contacting on Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.